Hello friends, I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you today? How's life in your world? How's things where you are? I hope everything is good and great and wonderful. Today I watched a video that kind of stuck with me for the day and I wanted to talk about it. I don't know why I got recommended this channel, but it's a writing channel. And I'm not going to... It doesn't matter who it is because the person making the videos claims to be an author but has no published works, so it's weird to me that I'm sure that they have industry experience and stuff, but to say I'm an author and I'm going to give you writing advice and I've never actually written anything that's been published, that's a little weird. But they said something in the video that made me go, I didn't really think about that. And the video, I think, was talking about, specifically about fantasy, so it's kind of a genre fiction type channel. And in this discussion, they talked about how today's readers are not the same as readers from the 90s, so stop trying to write fantasy like it's the 90s. And while, sure, that made me think, like, what does that even mean as a writer? Because I would hope to someday, finish this story that I've been working on for years. What does that mean? But as a reader, what does that mean? And I started to kind of think about it. It never really occurred to me, honestly. Like, tastes change. Like, no duh, the genre fiction that was popular in the 60s is definitely boring and dumb now. 70s, like, the same thing with television. Like, the complexity of the shows has grown. So the tastes of the modern reader are completely different from those in the 90s. And it didn't occur to me, and I started thinking about it. Like, some of my favorite 90s, maybe even late 80s series, like the Dragonlance novels, like Dragons of Autumn and Summer and Winter and Spring or whatever. The Legends series from Dungeons and Dragons, or even The Wheel of Time, or Robin Hobb's books. Are those really different than the fiction that's being published today? Yeah, they are. I would say that even books, even things that have spanned time, this month, I think, well, last month and this month, there's 2 new Dresden Files books within a span of like 40 days. And I haven't read either of them yet, but thinking about that series, the first few books are very different from the last few. And it's not necessarily just because the author has grown over that series, but because the reader has grown and the reader has changed, and what is needed from that story has become more complex and it's become different from what was needed in the beginning. And so I just wanted to talk about, like, if you read fantasy and you think back fondly, are the books that you fell in love with when you were younger still relevant to you today as a reader? Or are you interested in modern fantasy fiction, and do you see a difference? Now that I've thought about it, yeah, I haven't read a whole lot of modern fantasy. I will admit I don't keep up with the times on that, and I think part of the reason is because as a reader, I still look at things like The Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit as kind of the Holy Grail, right? I still love reading those books. I still look at, Terry Pratchett's vast catalog of work and still love all of those books. Those books are not the kind of books that people are writing anymore. And the kind of books that people write now, I don't even know if I would enjoy. There's a few. I have a friend who writes books, and you've probably heard me talk about him on this channel, and his fantasy fiction is really fun and entertaining. I've tried a few others. The lit RPG scene, I don't get it at all. It's just, I don't understand why that's a thing. Whatever, if that's what you enjoy reading, great. I'm just, I'm happy that you found your escape in that. But to me, no thank you. And I can't say that I've picked up a lot of modern fantasy and thought, wow, this is really fun. I've picked it up and thought, this is kind of convoluted, and I don't understand why we have to have all of, I want simple sword and sorcery. I want dude has to go on a quest to find a thing and bring it back. I want wizard, lost his magic and needs to figure out what to do. I want, the city is under siege by a bunch of dragons and somebody has to go save the kingdom by, finding the lost relic. I don't really care so much about these like super twisty, plot points with deep character relationships and like that. That's not what I read. So, a couple of things I would ask of you is, do you enjoy recent, modern, like, say within the last 10 years? Is there fantasy that's been released in the last 10 years? And I'm not talking about continuations of series. Is there fantasy that's been released in the last 10 years that you're in love with? And if so, please tell me what it is, because I would like to read some modern fantasy and try to figure out what that is, because currently I don't have an idea. And I don't even know where to start with trying to read modern fantasy, because it seems to be very different from the fantasy that I fell in love with as a child. Obviously, that's the point of this discussion. And the second thing is, do you still look back at those books fondly? Have you tried to read any of those books that you fell in love with as a young reader? Do you still look at those fondly, and have you reread any of them and thought, oh, this really holds up? Or is it kind of old and stale? I'd like to know that. Because, if I do finish this book, if I ever, I've got a pretty strong outline written. If I ever actually start typing words, I think I would like for it to be relatable to anybody, but that's difficult, especially, did I just say that? Especially because, if I finish this book, that would be my first book ever. And if for a first book ever, I don't want it to be like, is this guy just trying to write like Lovecraft, or is this guy trying to write like Tolkien, or why is his writing style so ancient? I'd rather write, something that has a voice that people can relate to. So let me know what your preferences are in the comments. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking and commenting and subscribing and being amazing friends and wonderful people. I really appreciate you, and I will see you again tomorrow. Today's word you should know to sound smart is choler's. It is a noun meaning the mood of anger, irritability, grumpiness, or being short-tempered and impatient. When Franklin is in the grip of choler's, even his closest friends avoid his table at the club. Choler's, C-H-O-L-E-R-S.